Touchdown, buzzer beater, do it all now. All now, top corner talking home run. Touchdown, buzzer beater, do it all now. All now, top corner like ooh.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, August 24th, 2026, and this is the Monday Report. I'm your host, H. James K., and today we are going to be talking about the Freedom 250 Grand Prix of Washington, D.C. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Indycar today for the first time since May. So, over the weekend, the NTT Data IndyCar Series, the NTT IndyCar Series, hosted the first ever IndyCar race in Washington, D.C. It was held around the National Mall and the Capitol Building and all that. And the race was a one-off to celebrate the 250th birthday of the United States of America. This event was first announced back in February or so, and there was some speculation of whether or not it would go off. Well, it did, and it was awesome. A lot of people showed up, big-time sponsors, the president was there. It was a big deal. So, before we talk about the guts of the race, let's talk about the podium. So, coming in third place, Will Power from Andretti Global. He qualified 12th, but he finished in third place. And this is yet another really good drive from Will Power, and especially on the street courses, it is very clear that Andretti Global has the best suspension program, which is really what makes the difference, because they're not that great on ovals, they're not that great on road courses, but on street courses, the Andretti Global dampers just give them an edge that they just cannot be beat. Coming in second place, you have Christian Lundgaard of Arrow McLaren IndyCar team. He qualified fourth and finished second. This is yet another podium for Christian Lundgaard, who also has 2 wins on the season. And for someone who is departing the team at the end of the year so they can replace him with Scott Dixon, this is yet another thing to add to his resume going into next year. Everyone kind of believes he's going to be signing with Chip Ganassi Racing to replace the outgoing legendary Scott Dixon in the 9 car, but that has yet to be finalized because Lundgaard is not allowed to talk to other teams yet. So, Lundgaard had a pretty good drive. This was a very typical drive from him. It was very quiet. He was fast. He was just there. It wasn't super flashy. It wasn't super aggressive, but he was always there in the front. And then finally, finishing in first place, you've got Kyle Kirkwood. Kirkwood qualified second and finished first, and oh my god, he dominated. He led all but 19 of the race's 147 laps, and 147 laps is a ton for a street course because this race was 250 miles, which is about 50 miles further than most other IndyCar races, like on the street courses, and even more than that in some respects. So this is a ridiculously long, challenging race, and Kirkwood absolutely dominated. He could pull a gap on anybody whenever he wanted, and he truly is the street course specialist because he's got 7 career wins, 6 of them are on street courses. It's what he does. He won another street course earlier this year in Arlington. That was another really stellar, dominating performance from him. But Kirkwood, once again, just really, really impressive drive. He was in such good command of the race, and the team, took no step wrong. They made great, he has, what's his name? Brian Herta as his strategist, and he is just a wizard. He's great. He's one of the best, if not the best, strategist in the grid. So things were just worked out for Kirkwood. And I'll talk more about the championship later, but this was a vitally important result. This needed to happen. Otherwise, the season was going to end today. Yes, there are more races, but if Kirkwood hadn't done what he did today, it would have been over. That would have been it. So let's get into the winners and losers. So winners, I've already said Andretti Global. It goes with it bears repeating. Andretti Global had a second win in a row. They won in Markham, which is a suburb of Ontario, last weekend. And this team they have made so much progress throughout this season developing the car, getting faster. They've really cut down on their pit mistakes, and all of their drivers have really kind of cut down on the mistakes and crashing. So the team is really rounding into form at the right time. Sadly, it's probably going to be too little too late unless they get some divine intervention. But either way, if you're Andretti Autosport, you got to be feeling great about this because you showed up, you displayed perfection and dominance in front of people like the President of the United States, in front of companies like Boeing and Starlink, big high dollar donors and dignitaries and celebrities. It was one of these things where if there was ever a time to show out, it was the Freedom 250 Grand Prix. That was kind of circle it on your calendar because if you're going to have a good showing, it's got to be there. And Andretti Global, they can use this to springboard into the coming season because this was huge for Andretti Global. All right, loser, Alex Palou. Alex Palou is trying to become a 5-time champion, winning 4 on the trot. And he made an entire season's worth of mistakes in one race. So first, he hit a fresh tire from another team in the pit box ahead of him when he was trying to leave the pits, which gave him a drive-through. Then he crashed. He went down a lap against Kyle Kirkwood. That happened. And then he got into a little crash and it broke off the front wing and he went down and finished the race 3 laps down in like 20th place. Now, this is really bad for Alex because if Alex had won the race and Kyle Kirkwood had finished 8th or worse, he would have won the championship. If he had gotten a top 10, then he would be guaranteed mathematically to win the championship next weekend. Now, with Alex Palou only being 94 points ahead of Kyle Kirkwood, the pressure's not off. And that's not the way you want the end of the season to go. They've been really charging and making great headway, but this race, they just made any mistake you can imagine. Every single one. Just over and over and over. Anything that it was like they were cursed. So for Alex Palou, he's going to win the championship just because he's still like 90 plus points ahead of everybody. And Kirkwood is the only one who can challenge him. So if Kirkwood rattles off 3 wins and Palou DNFs a couple of times, then maybe it's possible. But more than likely, Alex Palou is going to win the championship. But he could have done it at the Freedom 250 in front of everybody. But he didn't. So, winner, Nolan Siegel, who drives for Arrow McLaren IndyCar team, he had himself a day. He finished in 6th. Didn't qualify that great, but he finished in 6th, and man, it was impressive. Two of the 3 McLarens finished inside the top 10. Nolan Siegel is someone who I don't know if he deserves the McLaren seat, just because it's a really high ticket seat and he doesn't win enough or perform enough to really justify it. But this is a kid who definitely deserves to be in the IndyCar series. He should be driving. And there's every likelihood, because he's leaving after this season, being replaced by Felix Rosenqvist, who's joining Scott Dixon and Pato O'Ward. So there is every likelihood he's not in the field next year, even though he really should be, because he is a talented driver and he is growing into form before our very eyes. He just wasn't ready when they stuck him in a McLaren. But for Siegel, this was huge. It's a really good feather in your cap. It's something he can always point to. See, when it counted most there, I was up front. I was doing something. So that's great. Loser, Pato O'Ward. Goodness gracious. So Pato O'Ward qualified 7th. He drives for Arrow McLaren, obviously. He qualified 6th or 7th. He immediately dropped back to 9th on the start. He was starting on hard tires, and he got swallowed up. And he kind of stayed around 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9. He was in that realm for most of the day. And then he was on an alternate strategy, so he went into the pits, which dropped him back in the field. No big deal. He's going to get back to the front when the sequence finally, straightens out. But then he made a mistake. He overcooked a turn, he missed a turn, spun around, lost a whole bunch of time, and ultimately went down a lap to Kyle Kirkwood, the eventual winner. And so Christian Lundgaard, his teammate, finished second. Nolan Siegel, his teammate, finished in sixth, and he finished in 18th, one lap down. And this continues a run of bad form from Pato O'Ward. The thing with Pato is he is someone who cannot develop a car by himself. He just can't do it. He needs to have people there who can give good feedback, who can help develop the car. Because when the car is good, he's great. But he's not good enough at developing the car on his own to get the car there. So he's going to need Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenqvist to come in and help develop the car. Because he just doesn't speak that language, so to speak. So it's been a rough go of it for Pato this year. But this one was just really disappointing because given the speed of the McLarens, considering all of them all of those cars had the speed, and two of them finished inside the top 10. There's every likelihood that they finished 2.56 or 2.46. That could have easily been possible, or 2.68. So it's one of these things where the potential was there for Pato, but it was one of those days, mistakes and bad timing and dumb luck. But it is what it is. Winner, IndyCar Racing. This event was an absolute win, and I'm going to get to that more later, in a sec, I should say. But, man, talk about a win for IndyCar. This was something that needed to go off well. They needed to have good crowd. They needed to have good viewership, and the product on track needed to be good, and they checked a lot of those boxes, and it was one of those where if they had spent all this money, because the rumor we're hearing is that IndyCar spent $35 million to put this race together. $35 million of their own money. There were no tickets. They didn't charge for tickets. They just gave tickets away. So it's one of these things where if this didn't go off well, like maybe only 10,000 people showed up, or it was a rain out, or the race was just not exciting at all, it would have been a really bad, or there was something wrong, like a terrorist attack or something, it would have been a really big egg on their face IndyCar thing. But instead, it went really well, and it's a really positive result for IndyCar. And all the drivers were talking about how, in some ways it feels bigger than the 500 because, look where you are, and the Capitol building is in the background, and there's the National Archives and the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum and the Sculpture Garden and the Reflecting Pond, all of these things. So it was a much needed win for IndyCar. All right, loser, Scott McLaughlin. Oh, Scotty Mac. So Scotty Mac hasn't won in 2 years. He drives for Penske, and you're expected to win, and he hasn't won. And he was the only driver who could win, who could have challenged Kyle Kirkwood for the race. But instead, on the second to last restart, he did a dive bomb lunge inside Kyle Kirkwood to get him into the first turn, and he overcooked it and smacked the wall and busted up his car, and that was that. And it was one of those things where he was trying too hard and he just ran out of talent, because it was a move that was optimistic at best. I mean, if he had braked sooner, he might have been able to save it before his car hit the wall, but in truth, there was every likelihood that no matter what he did, he was going to crash, because that move was just reckless. And it ruined a good result because he was in second at the time. So, for someone who needs to win and needs to get good results, this is yet another bad result. And McLaughlin has had other bad results earlier in the year. Like, he He had a bad result the weekend before in Markham. He had an incident, and he's had several this season. So this was a really bad day for Scott McLaughlin. Now, he's going to have his seat again next year with Penske, but if this losing continues, there's every likelihood that Penske cuts him loose ahead of 2028 when the new car is coming out and there are going to be, big changes. So, bad day for Scotty Mac. All right, and then our last winner, the fans. The fans got treated to a spectacle. There was like 7 flyovers. There was F-35 Lightning IIs, F-22 Raptors, F-16 Fighting Falcons. There was a B-2, a B-1 Lancer, a B-52 Stratofortress. There was all of these different aircraft for all these different flyovers that was really great. And they had lots of concessions and good sight lines. And there was a lot of people who showed up. So if you were a fan, this went well. It wasn't, there wasn't like there's only one bathroom and it's clogged and now there's a 10-hour wait and, there's only one water stand and they ran out of water and it's too hot and people are passing out. It was a good experience for the fans. And on TV, it was a good race to watch. It was really long. But that was a good thing because it allowed strategies to develop over time and it made it really interesting. So this was a great event for fans. And I enjoyed it thoroughly, but I'll get to that in a second. Before we do, let's take a quick ad break. All right, welcome back. Now let's get to the final thoughts on the Freedom 250 Grand Prix. So other than the Indy 500, this was the longest race of the season. This race went 3 hours on a street circuit, is unheard of. This was the longest road or street course race Indycar has had in well over 30 years. The only races I can think of that even come close to this are back in the kart IndyCar World Series days of like the early to mid 80s. Sometimes they would do a 500 kilometer, 312 mile race at Riverside International Raceway in California. That was like 82, 83, and then when they did that, and it was like a super long race, and there was tons of attrition. But other than that, IndyCar hasn't even tried a road course or street course race anywhere near this long. So this was a massive, and the reason they made the race so long is because they wanted to race 250 miles, which is perfectly understandable considering it's the Freedom 250 and all this. So it was a really big test for the drivers, and it was a long race, and it was a really unique challenge for the teams because there were 3 or 4 pit stops. When have you ever seen 3 or 4 pit stops minimum on a street course? The answer is never. Usually it's can you do it in 2-stop, can you do it in 3-stop? So this was a huge departure from the norm for IndyCar scheduling. This race had a massive crowd. The number we're hearing is there was over 140,000 fans there on race day. After another suspected 100,000 showed up on Saturday for practice and qualifying in an IROC race. So, 240,000 fans in a weekend is bigger than Long Beach. That's bigger than anything other than the Indy 500. So that's huge for the series. That's hundreds of thousands of people who may never have gone to the race, going to a race, experiencing something new. So it was huge crowd. And people online will tell you, there was nobody in the crowd. No. They were standing 3 and 4 deep at all the fences to watch the race. All the grandstands filled up less than an hour after the gates to the track opened. So if you got to the track at 9 a.m., you could not get a seat in the grandstands because there were no more seats left. And that isn't like, they need to build more grandstands. No, that's just how street courses work. There are limited grandstand seatings, and everyone just stands around the track or walks around and sees all the sights while the race is going on. So there was a huge turnout for this race, which was awesome. This race, I said this earlier, this race was huge for IndyCar. Thousands of people were exposed to the first time. Big money sponsors like Boeing and Starlink were part of this event. Now, I don't know if Boeing and Starlink are going to start sponsoring, we're going to have the Boeing 500 at Texas or whatever. I don't know if it's going to be that way, but it, as I said earlier, it allows IndyCar to make some new friends, build some new relationships. because any series that can get big positive attention like this, that's a success. That's huge for the series. So this event being what it was massive for the series. I'm expecting a big number for ratings, though I would hope that it's at least higher than 1 million. Right now, the series is hovering around 1 million to 1.2 million viewers per race. The last couple have been kind of low, but I'm hoping that because this one was so, Fox News had coverage, FS1 had coverage, Fox had coverage, everyone in the media was talking about it. There was tons of media hype about this race. I'm hoping there'll be a pretty big number. Now, I would be elated if it was like 2 million. If IndyCar got to 2 million, that would be like the highest viewed IndyCar race other than the 500 in probably well over a decade. So that would be huge. If it's 2 million, I would be elated. That's dance in the street, woohoo, shoot off the fireworks kind of stuff. If it's less than 1 million, that would be very disappointing considering how big of a deal this race was and how much attention it got and how many people were there and everything that it was. But I'm expecting a big number. Ultimately, I hope this race comes back next year. But I don't think it's going to. And even if it doesn't, this was a rousing success. Bud Denker of Penske Entertainment pitched this idea to the White House back in like January, February. And IndyCar president and CEO Doug Bowles has already said that it's looking like this race is going to be a one-off because Penske paid so much money out of pocket and there was no ticket sales. And the only way this comes back is if IndyCar can find a couple of really big ticket sponsors who are willing to shell out tens of millions of dollars to put this on, because $35 million is no joke. That's more than the IndyCar series makes for its media deal every year. So it's an enormous amount of money. And it's like this, IndyCar treated this race like the hot dogs at Home Depot. It's a loss leader, or the chickens at Kroger. It's something that they don't make money on, but they're hoping it can lead to, it can bring people into the store and sell products. Well, for IndyCar, we're not going to make any money on this, but we're hoping it'll build up relationships and get, it's like $30 million worth of advertising. So it was a big freaking deal, and it was a huge success, and I hope it comes back. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., has already said that she wants it back. Several government officials have said they want it back. Ultimately, though, they'd have to make the financials work because it's not going to work for the IndyCar series to be shelling out so much money and getting no ROI on that. So hopefully, fingers crossed that Boeing says, hey, let's do this. Yeah, the Boeing 250 at Washington, D.C. And, and the thing is, if they don't do the race again, I hope IndyCar will make one road or street course race 250 miles, because there is just something about the extended length of the race that made a different challenge and made so much more intrigue on the road courses and street courses. It was incredible. Like, I would love to see Markham, Canada be 250 miles, because that race was freaking mayhem last weekend. So you do that for like 250 miles, it could be just amazing. It'd be like you can raffle off who's going to win because you're just not going to know until the final lap. So I'm hoping that they'll keep a 250-mile road course on the schedule at some event, just because I think it'd be freaking awesome. So what's next for IndyCar? That's the big thing. IndyCar heads to the legendary Milwaukee Mile Speedway for an exciting double-header weekend. On Saturday, August 29th at 2:30 p.m., you can watch the Snap-on Makers and Fixers 250. And then on Sunday, August 30th at 1 p.m., you can watch the Snap-on Milwaukee 250. Now, I have personally been to the Milwaukee Mile. It is a 1 mile, largely flat oval that goes back to like 1903 as a racing venue. It's one of the legendary tracks in America. I went to this event last year, and it was very exciting. It was a great race, tons of passing. Milwaukee was a track made for IndyCar, and so I'm expecting a really good show from these two races next weekend. This coming weekend, I should say. So Look for those will be on Fox on Saturday and Sunday. Alright, the song of the week this week is Tear You Apart by She Wants Revenge. Go to hjameskay.com and go to the Song of the Week tab to read and learn more about the Song of the Week. Alright, my name is H. James K. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time. This episode was brought to you by hjameskay.com, your home for all things H. James K, and hjameskay.store, your home for all H. James K merchandise. Be sure to sign up for the free monthly newsletter on hjameskay.com to receive news and updates about H. James K's work and receive your one-time 15% discount on your purchase at hjameskay.store. Be sure to follow H. James K on social media at HJamesK on X and at HJamesK Official on Instagram. Be sure to pre-order your copy of The Secret War, H. James K's debut spy thriller. Order your copy today so you can get it as soon as possible. The Secret War. Pre-order is available now. Available for purchase starting November 1st.